Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Zenitsu, and we are back with another Digimon video. So today we actually do have some metadata to go over as EX10 is coming to a close, so huge shoutouts to both Eggman Events and Carta Magica for being able to get us this data as quickly as possible, and again, big shoutouts to Carta Magica for actually hosting a regional. So in terms of the overall event details, this was a little bit on the smaller side compared to other regionals we've had in the past. So it was only 150 players. This was, again, an in-person regional. So the drop in numbers is kind of perfectly valid, especially for the time of year that it is. Then on top of that, it was still a full 8 rounds of best of 3 Swiss, and it happened on October 18th. So as far as the top 16 archetype breakdown, it is as follows. We have 3 rocks, 2 LordKnightmons, 2 Machinedramons, 2 Omnimons, don't know why it's labeled separately, but 2 Omnimons, 1 Phoenixmon, 1 Imperial, 1 Galaxy, 1 Megidra, 1 Purple Hybrids, 1 Gankoomon, and 1 Gallantmon. If you stop and look at all of the different decks that we have actually talked about in the past, you could probably realize that, hey, a lot of these decks are exactly the same decks that have been topping for quite a while, and, well, that's because it is. I've been doing my own little sub-tracking in terms of what deck was able to top and how many times it was able to top, and, well, no surprise, the majority of what was topping, if not everything that actually topped this time, was not a new deck that we haven't seen before. There might be some, like, minor techs and tweaks to what the decks are doing, but for the most part, the deck themselves and the core identity of the deck and the role it's fulfilling inside of the meta has not changed. And when it comes to the actual meta, as far as EX10 and BT22.5, these are the current top forerunners of the environment. These are the middle of the pack, and these are at the bottom of the pack. So the Sakuyamon and Royal Knights hit really did quell the deck, didn't stop it from topping a couple of times or once, but it quelled the deck enough, and Gallantmon's reign still runs supreme, being one of the best decks in the current format. So glad to know nothing is changing, and while that's both a good and a bad thing, probably a subject for a different video, just know that the format is at this point pretty stagnant. So I'm really excited for BT23, and hopefully BT23 is going to introduce something that's going to shake up and change the format. Otherwise, we're just probably looking at more stagnation, which is not necessarily the greatest thing you want to see. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of this event in terms of the rest of the data and taking a look at the decks, if you're enjoying this type of content and you want to see more, you already know what to do with the whole YouTube and social media doobly-doo thing, and leave that like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date when I upload or go live next. But regardless of all of that doom and gloom when it comes to the state of the meta, we have the deck that actually won the event, which was Phoenixmon. Second place was Lord Knight, third place was Rocks, fourth was Imperial, fifth was Lord Knight, sixth was Galaxy, seventh was Machinedramon, eighth was Megidramon, and then the rest is kind of just the rest. Not necessarily trying to discredit any of these players and their overall success. Congrats to all the players for being successful. It's just, again, these decks, for the most part, we've already seen before. So I'm not really going to go too in-depth on any of them because the majority of it is exactly the same as what I've covered in previous videos. So as far as just some of the changes, I guess, we have LordKnightmon adopting the Guilmon engine, which is not really a surprise, and they've been doing that for a while since basically the Guilmon engine came out. So it's just more X antibodies slop.deck .purple.good stuff, I guess, however you want to label it, but essentially, yeah, they're just leveraging the fact that Cerberusmon can revive something like Guilmon, and then LordKnightmon can revive another Guilmon. Then you could either use Alliance or Guilmon to be able to increase your security damage, and you have the free unsuspend with Cerberusmon X antibody, and potential extra free damage with Cerberusmon to be able to deal a lot of damage relatively quickly, acting as similar to an OTK deck as one could. So both LordKnightmon decks is actually doing the exact same thing. The only real difference is one LordKnightmon deck is splashing in Gallantmon just for some extra damage because he could delete like the LordKnightmon or something, and then the on delete triggers will trigger off of LordKnightmon thanks to the Guilmon stuff. So that way you actually can maintain and retain some decent value while adding in some extra aggressive pushes that the opponent might not be anticipating. And because you're playing the purple Digimon, then you have ways of reusing your tech one of. So yeah, not necessarily too surprising there on why this deck is doing well. It's mostly just because this is one of the most degenerate engines in the game being abused by a lot of decks. Like the first place deck, which is a Phoenixmon deck that is actually utilizing the Guilmon engine. Gee, I wonder, surprise! It's like they hit the wrong card and they should have hit the Growlmon X antibody. But regardless, yes, this deck really isn't doing anything different. It's just trying to use on delete synergies with Phoenixmon X and try to line up cute, cheeky Alphamon or Yukin plays, or just try to hardcore aggress and put a lot of pressure on the opponent that they reasonably wouldn't be able to deal with. So good to know that Phoenixmon has not really changed. Then when it comes to Imperial, I'm not even going to bother. It's literally just Imperial. We've seen it so many times for probably the past, gosh, what, year and a half at this point. The deck literally hasn't changed, so yeah, it's still good. When it comes to rocks, we actually do have 3 different rock decks, and, well, 2 of the rock decks are exactly the same, so these 2 are not doing anything any different. They're just leveraging the Gatsumon as an additional floodgate, and the only real difference is basically just nothing. Maybe a couple of Tamer or Digimon ratios here or there, but for the most part, they're the exact same deck, and it's still just trying to leverage and use Magnetic-Dramon to end the game as quickly as it possibly can. Then when it comes to the last Rocks deck, this is kind of more traditional Rocks, I guess, minus the fact that they're teching in Digital Gate Open as a cute extra way to not only just search for your cards, but being able to play out your additional closes, which does matter. And they're also going to be leveraging Metallic-Dramon as their tech floodgate to try to hose on the opponent. And this card also has some cute niche synergies, being able to play out Magnetic-Dramon for free while it's in your trash. I do think that in order to like get more bang for your buck out of Metallic-Dramon, this is kind of where the utilization of a card like Gatsumon is actually really good, because this card can help set up a magnetic so it can actually be revived. And this also has the inheritable blocker, so if you're unable to OTK the opponent, which I don't know why you're playing an OTK deck and not OTKing the turn you combo off, but I digress. Gatsumon does give you a little bit of extra defensive flexibility in terms of what it's capable of doing. So cool that Rocks basically hasn't really changed that much since we last saw it, which was last event, as the top EX10 deck to literally do anything in the current environment. Galaxy is still Galaxy, Machinedramon DM is still Machinedramon DM, Megidramon, I don't really think this deck is doing anything different. No, not really. So Megidramon's just still Megidramon. Purple Hybrids is still Purple Hybrids. It is interesting that this player actually is utilizing some Itmons to kind of tech in Beelzemon Ace, which is kind of funny to think about because you're already milling a good amount with your Velgramon, so why not just leverage the Itmon tech to be able to mill more and have more potential mill triggers to control the opponent's field, because we do have some pretty decent options with mill triggers, and now we have an extra Digimon with a mill trigger as well. And the Eye in Mako actually interacting with wizards is pretty funny because Duskmon actually is a wizard, so you still have pretty decent synergy there. So yeah, it just makes sense that you could play Purple Hybrid teching in some of the Beelzemon cards, on top of the fact that you do have an Itmon that can help play out your Tamers from your trash, giving the deck more resilience against Tamer removal. So that's pretty cool there. I don't think Gankumon's doing anything different. Nope, it's just Ganku Turtle, one of the more annoying decks in the format because of just this invincible wall that gives your everything Omni protection. As far as the only like real new innovative deck that we've seen, it is just a slightly different interpretation of Machinedramon. So instead of utilizing a classic purple low end or the DM engine, they are actually abusing the Growlmon engine. Who would have thought one of the best generic engines in the game is being abused by one of the best top ends in the game? So what this deck is doing is actually something really unique, leveraging the Chimeramon from BT19 to be able to play out the Machinedramons for free. So note that they are not playing the new Machinedramon, they are playing the old Machinedramon because this card will allow us to gain memory when it's played for free. So it can increase the overall play lines on top of the fact that its protections are basically pretty comparable to the old one. This just has some extra protection with the stopping of DP reduction, which with yellow pretty much absent from the format really doesn't matter. It's just the extra memory gain is super nice off of this card. Then when it comes to how we're actually lining this up, that's why the Guilmon engine is actually being used, because you could Digivolve into Growlmon X Antibody, gain its on delete ability, then Digivolve into the Chimeramon, then use Chimeramon's when Digivolving ability to delete itself. So you could trigger the on delete ability to delete another Digimon to be able to play out Machinedramon for free. So you're thinking, oh, where's that other Digimon coming from? Well, the other Digimon is coming from Growlmon X Antibody. So you order the on deletes to where you bring back a Guilmon, so that way you have the Guilmon to then delete to the Chimera's on delete ability to then play out the Machinedramon for free. So that's kind of cute and cheeky on how you're able to get Machinedramon out pretty quickly and efficiently, because this deck also does a lot of classic cycling. On top of the on-delete gain of memory, to be able to gain even more memory going up into your Chimera. So yeah, pretty cool to see that tech and innovation there as a new way to approach Machinedramon. Then when it comes to the Omnimon decks, because I think that's like the only other thing worth talking about, because let's just hop a look at Gallantmon, because Gallantmon's just Gallantmon. Yeah, literally just Gallantmon. Don't really know what else to say. It is interesting that they're actually utilizing the BT17 War Growl. Most people just go for the BT12 for the memory gain, and they're actually using the other War Growl as well for maybe the on delete. So it is slightly different. Like, this almost feels like I want to be purple, but I'm still red anyway. Gallantmon.deck. So yeah, cool to see. I guess like you could still just do whatever you want as long as you just have like the broken top end cards. It kind of just doesn't matter. And as long as you have still like the same core engine that everyone else is using, it also doesn't matter. But as far as the Omnimons, we have the Omnimons both utilizing the red egg. So good to know that there's more than just the CS egg that actually can perform well. So when it comes to the deck that came in the lowest performing one out of the top 16, you have the still usage of the Gabumon for some good searching. The memory gain also is pretty decent, and they still are running the Mirai to be able to try to set up the Nokia for free, but they also are teching in Digital Gate Open to be able to try to set up the Nokia for as cheap as possible, or at the very least set up a Mat and Tie. So that's cool to see there, and, well, they're still just an Omnimon deck at the end of the day. The only other real tech cards worth noting is the fact that they're using the BT21 Agumon for some extra DP, and his on-play grabs us a Reptile or Dragonkin. So that's going to be either our War Greymons or our other Agumons and Gabumons, because we do have to remember Gabumon, yes, is a reptile. So it does work off of that, but as far as the rest of the deck, it's just Omnimon. We've seen this so many times before, and when it comes to the other Omnimon, the more successful Omnimon, they're again still on red eggs, and they're leveraging the BT17 tech, because the BT17 tech has the magical keyword end of turn DNA. So that allows you to have more play lines than if you were actually running the black ones, because even though the black ones does increase your overall consistency, the fact that they don't have end of turn DNA means if you only are seeing and only are using the black Agu or Gabu, you will not be able to actually get into a Omnimon in a single turn with those cards because they don't have end of turn DNA. So there is some slight awkwardness in terms of those, which is why I like utilizing these personally. But as far as the alterations to this Omnimon deck, they actually are going to be running the Nokia, which is fine. Having extra Nokias is never a bad thing to try to save on as much memory as possible. On top of the fact that they aren't running Alter S at all. Instead, they're going to be running Alter B, probably to try to help win and close the game faster. I do want to apologize if it sounds like I'm being super cynical. I've been just covering a lot of the meta, and seeing it not change is a little on the frustrating side, even post-ban and restrictions, which is why I think that Digimon needs to do more ban and restrictions, because on the release of BT23, what's really stopping them from saying, hey, let's just hit Growlmon X Antibody and kind of see where things go from there? So they could take a more active role in actually trying to balance their metagame so it prevents stagnation like this. Because some of these decks we have been seeing for a year, almost 2 years now, and it's not necessarily super enjoyable seeing the same thing over and over again, which is why I think that the current meta environment is pretty stale and stagnant. On top of the fact that stagnation is also not super great, especially if the next set isn't able to introduce anything that's competitively viable, that's going to further constrict the set to not perform very well, and then that low performance will cause some distrust in stores believing in the Digimon product, because even though Bandai is doing a fantastic job at not hardcore power creeping the game, this is why they need to try to take more of an active role in balancing their game so they could let the next set or the future sets actually have room to be able to breathe and succeed as a set. Because if nothing competitively viable is coming out in BT23, why are we wasting our time buying that set at all? Not saying BT23 is a bad set, it's just we have yet to see the impact and ramifications on their overall card design BT23 is doing as a whole. Because as we've seen with EX9 and as we've seen with EX10, granted, yes, those are EX sets, and EX sets tend to do a little bit worse than main BT sets. Even with BT22, it didn't really seem like the meta changed that much, even with a current ban and restriction list put under BT22. So I feel like something here has got to give. I know this is not necessarily the video to talk about that. This is to talk about this event, but I just wanted to bring up this event because BT23 is the next set on the horizon, and I don't know if anything else outside of maybe the introduction of like Hoodie Loop is really going to change the formats, because a lot of the problematic decks that we've already seen top multiple events on end or actually got hit and are getting some support are just going to be the same decks we're going to be seeing over and over again, and that's not necessarily fun or exciting, knowing that the game really isn't changing or evolving outside of just some slight tweaks here or there for what new tools are going to be added and how it's going to impact the overall metagame. So yeah, that's currently where the meta is at and what did well in this event. So as always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Later.